It all started as a quiet whisper in the back of my mind, a voice I could barely hear but couldn't ignore. I wouldn't call it curiosity, more like a yearning, a subtle pull towards something I couldn't fully understand at the time. I was 16, an age where most of us are clumsily navigating the complexities of identity. For me, though, those complexities took an unexpected turn when I found myself alone at home one weekend. My sister, Emily, was spending the summer before her college semester away with friends. She'd left behind her chaotic wardrobe, a kaleidoscope of skirts, dresses, and delicate blouses that had always been a source of fascination for me. To be clear, it wasn't the clothes themselves, but the way they seemed to radiate a sense of freedom and confidence when she wore them. Emily had this effortless grace, a kind of magic I'd always envied. She didn't just wear her clothes. She became them, and they became her. On that fateful Saturday morning, I wandered into her room. The door creaked open as if granting me permission. Her scent, floral and light, lingered in the air, wrapping around me like a comforting embrace. I wasn't sure why I was there. Perhaps it was boredom or the quiet temptation of forbidden territory. But as I stood in front of her open closet, I felt the whisper grow louder. I reached out and ran my fingers over the soft fabrics, each one whispering a story of its own. That's when I saw it, a pale pink dress with a flowing skirt and lace trim. It wasn't overly fancy, but there was something about it, something that seemed to call my name. Before I could talk myself out of it, I pulled it from the hanger and held it against my chest. The fabric was light, almost ethereal. I glanced at the mirror across the room. My reflection stared back at me, clad in my usual jeans and t-shirt. The contrast was stark, almost laughable. But the pull was undeniable. I closed the door, locked it, and hesitated for a moment, heart pounding in my chest. Was this wrong? What if Emily found out? What if anyone found out? But the questions didn't matter. Not then, not in that moment. I slipped out of my clothes and stepped into the dress. The fabric slid over my skin like a gentle caress, and when I turned to face the mirror again, I barely recognized myself. The boy in the reflection had softened edges, a quiet vulnerability that hadn't been there before. I adjusted the straps and smoothed the skirt, letting it swirl around my knees. It was magical. A surge of emotion bubbled up, a mix of joy and relief I hadn't expected. Being dressed like this felt like unlocking a part of myself I didn't know existed, a part that had been waiting patiently for this very moment. I twirled once, then again, the skirt flaring out like petals. For the first time in what felt like forever, I smiled. But my bliss was short-lived. The sound of a car door slamming outside jolted me back to reality. I froze, heart hammering as panic set in. My parents weren't supposed to be back until the evening, but what if plans had changed? I scrambled to take off the dress, nearly tripping in my haste. Once I was back in my usual clothes, I shoved the dress into the closet and hurried back to my room, my pulse racing. That should have been the end of it. A one-time experiment, a secret I'd take to my grave. But it wasn't. The feeling lingered, haunting me like a beautiful ghost. Over the next few weeks, I found myself sneaking into Emily's room whenever I had the house to myself. Each time, I tried on something new, a sundress, a pleated skirt, even her makeup once, though I was hopeless at applying it. Every time I felt more alive, more me. Then, one afternoon, everything changed. I'd been careless, leaving Emily's room in disarray after trying on a floral blouse and jeans that fit me better than I'd expected. When Emily came home early from her trip, she noticed. She cornered me in the living room later that evening, her expression a mix of curiosity and suspicion. "Alex," she began, her tone gentle but firm. "Have you been in my room?" I froze, a wave of heat rushing to my face. "What? No. Why would I?" "Don't lie to me," she interrupted. "I'm not mad, but I need to know." Her eyes searched mine, and in that moment, I realized there was no point in denying it. Emily was many things, but she wasn't stupid. She had probably pieced it together the moment she noticed her favorite dress wasn't hanging quite right on its hanger. My voice cracked, and I looked away, unable to meet her gaze. I'm sorry. Her expression softened, and she sat down beside me. Alex, it's okay. I'm not upset. I just want to understand. The kindness in her voice broke something inside me. Before I knew it, I was telling her everything. How it started, how it made me feel, and how terrified I was of anyone finding out. When I finally finished, I braced myself for her reaction. To my surprise, she smiled. Well, she said, I guess that explains why my eyeliner's been disappearing. I blinked, unsure whether she was joking or genuinely upset. But then she laughed, a warm, genuine laugh that eased the tension in the room. Alex, she continued, if wearing my clothes makes you happy, you don't have to sneak around. But maybe we can get you some stuff of your own? You know, so you're not stretching out my favorite jeans. Her words hit me like a tidal wave. Acceptance. Understanding. I hadn't realized how badly I needed it until that moment. Tears welled up in my eyes, and before I could stop myself, I hugged her. Thank you, I whispered. Over the next few weeks, Emily became my biggest ally. She helped me navigate this new part of myself, teaching me how to apply makeup, style my hair, and choose clothes that suited me. She even gave me a few pieces from her wardrobe, things she didn't wear anymore but thought I'd like. For the first time in my life, I felt seen. Emily didn't just accept me, she celebrated me. She even started calling me by a new name when we were alone, Alexa. Alexa suits you, she said one evening as she braided my hair. It feels right.
And it did.
It felt more than right. It felt like coming home. Of course, not everything was perfect. There were still moments of doubt and fear, times when I wondered if the world would ever accept me the way Emily did. But with her by my side, I felt braver, stronger. She reminded me that being true to myself was worth the risk. One day, she surprised me with a gift, a soft lavender dress with a fitted bodice and flowing skirt. I saw this and thought of you, she said, handing it to me with a shy smile. I tried it on immediately, and when I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized the girl staring back at me. But this time, I didn't feel like I was pretending. This time, I felt like Alexa like me. Being a girl suits you, Emily said, her voice full of pride. I hope you know that. I smiled, tears brimming in my eyes. Thanks to you, I do. From that moment on, I stopped hiding. With Emily's support, I began exploring this new part of myself more openly, one step at a time. It wasn't always easy, but it was always worth it. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't just living, I was thriving. And it all started with a dress. The weeks that followed were like stepping into a new world, a world where I finally felt like I belonged. Emily's encouragement wasn't just empowering, it was transformative. For the first time, I allowed myself to imagine a future where I wasn't bound by the rigid expectations of others, where I could be who I truly was. One Friday evening, Emily suggested something that made my heart skip a beat. We should go out, she said casually, as though she hadn't just dropped a bombshell. She was lying on my bed, flipping through a fashion magazine while I sat cross-legged on the floor, painting my nails a soft coral shade.
Out.
I repeated, my voice rising an octave.
Yeah.
Like out, she said, grinning. Alexa deserves a night on the town. I hesitated, my pulse quickening. The thought of stepping outside as Alexa was exhilarating, but it was also terrifying. What if people stared?
What if they said something?
Worse, what if they knew? I don't know, Emily, I said, staring at my hands. What if something goes wrong? She closed the magazine and sat up, her expression serious. Alexa, she corrected herself, you don't have to do anything you're not ready for. But if you want to try, I'll be right there with you. We can go somewhere low-key just for a little while. Baby steps. Her words calmed me, and after a moment of silence, I nodded. Okay, but nothing too fancy. Deal, she said, already pulling her phone out to look for options. The next evening, Emily helped me get ready. She chose a cute but understated outfit, a pair of black leggings, a flowy teal tunic, and ankle boots. She styled my hair into loose waves and applied my makeup with practiced precision, opting for a natural look that highlighted my features without drawing too much attention. When she finished, I turned to the mirror and felt a rush of emotion. I looked good. Not just good, right? For the first time, I didn't feel like I was wearing a costume. I felt like myself. "You're beautiful," Emily said, squeezing my shoulder. "Now, let's go before I change my mind about keeping it low-key." We went to a small cafe on the outskirts of town, the kind of place where people minded their own business. As we walked in, my heart pounded so loudly, I was sure everyone could hear it. But to my surprise, no one even glanced our way. The world didn't stop turning. The sky didn't fall. We found a corner table and ordered drinks. Emily got her usual caramel latte, and I nervously asked for an iced tea. As we sipped our drinks and chatted, I began to relax. For the first time, I felt what it was like to exist in the world as Alexa, and it was everything I'd hoped for. As the night wore on, my confidence grew. When Emily suggested we take a walk through the nearby park, I agreed, without hesitation. The cool evening air felt refreshing against my skin, and the sound of crickets filled the silence between our footsteps. "See?" Emily said, nudging me playfully. "No big deal." I smiled, but before I could respond, we passed a group of teenagers sitting on a bench. One of them, a boy with a mop of unruly hair, glanced up and stared at me for a moment too long. My stomach dropped, and I quickly looked away, my heart racing. "Hey," Emily said softly, squeezing my arm. "Ignore him. You're doing great." Her words grounded me, and I took a deep breath, forcing myself to keep walking. By the time we reached the car, my nerves had settled. "Proud of you," Emily said as we climbed in. "You were amazing tonight." "Thanks," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I couldn't have done it without you." Over the next few months, I continued to take those baby steps. Emily helped me build a small wardrobe of my own, and we went out together more often, each outing a little braver than the last. I even started experimenting with different styles, finding joy in the simple act of self-expression. But as I became more comfortable as Alexa, I also began to feel the weight of keeping this part of myself hidden from the rest of the world. My parents, my friends, they had no idea. And while Emily's support was a lifeline, I couldn't help but wonder how long I could keep this secret. The tipping point came one afternoon when I accidentally left a pair of earrings on my nightstand. My mom found them while tidying up and immediately confronted me. "Alex, whose are these?" she asked, holding up the delicate silver hoops. I froze, my mind racing for an excuse. But before I could say anything, Emily appeared in the doorway. "They're mine," she said quickly, her tone casual. "I let Alex borrow them for a school project." My mom raised an eyebrow. "A school project?" "Yeah," Emily said, not missing a beat. "Something about Shakespeare and gender roles. You know how English teachers can be?" Mom looked skeptical, but didn't press the issue. Once she left the room, I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. "Thanks," I said, my voice shaky. "I don't know what I would have done if." "You don't have to thank me," Emily interrupted. "But Alex, we need to talk." She sat down on the edge of my bed, her expression serious. "You can't keep hiding forever. I know it's scary, but you deserve to be yourself all the time, not just when it's safe." Her words stayed with me long after she left. She was right, of course. But knowing something and acting on it were two very different things. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. A week later, Emily and I were at the mall when we ran into her friend Sarah. I'd met Sarah a few times before and liked her. She was kind, funny, and refreshingly non-judgmental. "Who's this?" Sarah asked, her eyes flicking to me with curiosity. "This is my sister, Alexa," Emily said smoothly, as though it were the most natural thing in the world. I froze, my heart leaping into my throat. Sarah smiled and held out her hand. "Nice to meet you, Alexa," she said warmly. "Emily's told me so much about you." I hesitated, then took her hand, my mind spinning. Did she know? Was she just being polite? But as the conversation continued, it became clear that Sarah didn't suspect a thing, or if she did, she didn't care. For the rest of the afternoon, I felt a sense of euphoria I couldn't explain. For the first time, I wasn't just pretending to be Alexa. I was Alexa. That day marked a turning point. Slowly but surely, I began to share my truth with the people I trusted most. Some reactions were better than others, but I was prepared for that. What mattered was that I was finally living authentically, no longer hiding in the shadows. Looking back, I realize how much I owe to Emily. She didn't just support me, she believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. Thanks to her, I found the courage to embrace who I was and share that person with the world. Being Alexa isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. Because for the first time in my life, I'm not just existing, I'm living. And it all started with a dress. Thank you so much for watching till now. It means the world to have you here. This community is all about empowering each other and celebrating the incredible journeys of everyone on their path to living authentically. If you're ever feeling lost or alone, remember you have a whole family here for you. Hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, and let's keep inspiring each other, sending you all the love and strength in the world. Until next time, live your life by your rules.